operating system, if you have the Windows operating system, so we need to download and install the browser. So browser will be running on our Windows. Okay, so yeah, so these type of applications, or we call it as a heavy weighted applications. Okay, similarly in our programming languages, so languages also we have okay. Sorry guys. Okay, so Spring IOC. So here system here Spring. So we are learning about the Spring framework. Okay, so in this, okay, so before, like if you want to create an application using this Spring IOC. Okay, so we need to understand about this. So we need to understand about some basic about the Spring. Okay, so to understand the basic about the Spring, I'm going to deal with, like we will be dealing with the something called like Spring IOC. So here IOC stands for inversion of controller. So Spring IOC, and we have dependency also. Sorry, DI. So DI stands for like dependency injection. I will tell you, like, okay, so Spring IOC inversion of controller. So inversion controller. So yeah, yeah, as I said, like this IOC stands for inversion controller. So now we need to understand like why we need to go for this topic only. Okay, so yeah, like Spring in this, like, okay, so if you want to deal with the Spring, okay, so I said like some of the basic concept we need to understand. The basic concepts is nothing but like the Spring framework will automatically gives us an object. Okay, so we need to understand what are the ways we can create an object by using this Spring framework. Okay, so I will help you out. Okay, so here, like, guys, can anyone tell me like how to create an object in normal Java? So till now, how we are going to create an object? What are the ways are there to create an object? at the time like running of that application only the object will be get created. Okay, so there are like two ways, two types are there. Okay, based on the commands that will work. So whenever I'm going to run the application, at the time only the object will be get created for the particular, like we need to give information that so these are the classes are there. So for this you need to create an object, and then this will be the reference variable, you need to point that object. If you provide this information, then at the starting time of the application only, the Spring container, the container which is provided by the Spring framework, it is going to create a object. Okay, so by default, okay, it will be invoking that. Okay, we need to, as we are passing the class name, like that means a fully qualified class name we need to provide. As we are going to give that, okay, so it is going to invoke an object of that particular class, and then it is going to like once the object has been created, then it is going to refer by a reference variable which we have provided. Okay, so we will see that how we are going to perform that operation, we will see. I will explain you in step by step, you will be getting to know that. Okay, and yeah, so that object will be present in the container whenever we just required particular class object, just we can use that reference variable and get the object. Okay, so this is what we are going to perform in like today's session. Okay, so I will go for one sec. Yeah, so let me share the workspace. Okay, so let me share the workspace, just give me a second. Okay, oh, cool. Okay, so guys, now let us go for create a project, and like what I said, we will see. Okay, so whether my Spring is capable of creating an object or not, we will try to see. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just I will create a simple Maven project. Okay, so I'm going to create a new Maven project file, new Maven project. One sec. Okay, so let us go with the create a sample Maven project only. Okay, so click next. So here, let me give the name. Okay, so let me give the name. I'm going to give the name as Spring Core. Okay, so I'm going to give the name as Spring Core. And guys, to create an object, there are like Spring only, it will provide two ways of creation of an object. Okay, so we like the information we are providing for that Spring framework to create an object. Okay, so there are like two ways. One is using the XML configuration. Okay, so there is something called as like we need to go for using the XML configuration. That is nothing but like while initial days while dealing with the servlets, how we are dealing, like how we are create a servlet and configure the servlet under the web.xml. Okay, so that's what we call it as a XML configuration. So once I explained about the life cycle of a servlet, then I use an annotation. Like you might have remember that the annotation is like web servlet, right? So that is what, like if you are using the annotation, then we call it as that annotation configuration. Okay, so yeah, annotation configuration. If you are using an XML file, okay, so if you are using an XML file, then we call it as a XML configuration. Okay, so we call it as a XML configuration, guys. Is it clear? So now initially we will be dealing with the XML configuration as we are done in the servlet. Okay, so then we can move for the annotation configuration. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so just I will create a project with a name as Spring Core hyphen XML. Okay, so it's an XML configuration we are going to perform. Yeah, sorry. This is the project name I will be giving, artifact ID, and the group ID I'm going to give it as like edu.jsp. Is the group ID I will be following, and then I'll click finish. Okay, so then I will fish, click finish. Okay, so now everyone like okay, so now I think like project has been created. Cool. Where is that XML config? Yeah, so it is here. Cool. So everything is done up to the mark. Okay, so pom.xml. Let me open that pom.xml. Yeah, so no dependencies are there by default, like it is occurring. Cool. And project structure, everything is creating in my project. Okay, cool. Now, so we are using the Spring framework, right? So Spring is a framework. Okay, so it is not present under our JDK. So we need to add its particular jar file. Okay, so we need to add its particular jar file so that we can make use of this Spring framework. Okay, so now to add, okay, so as we are dealing with a Maven dependency, so Maven project, so we need to just copy a dependency. Okay, so we need to just add a dependency into our project, so that will be adding the what are the jar files which are required to deal with the Spring framework. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will share the screen one second. So we will go for I'm going to search for this Maven repository. Okay, so we will go for the Maven repository. Application. Okay, so to deal with the Spring framework that has been added to my application. Okay, so here it will consist of core, beans, scope, everything. Okay, so we can make use of this. Okay, I will tell you. So like what are the classes we are going to use, what are the interfaces we are going to use. Okay, so I will be explaining that one. Noted, notation. I hope everyone created the project and add the dependencies to. Okay, so now, so in this project. Was yeah, okay, so now let us deal with that. Okay, so Spring IOC, and let us try to see. Okay, so how it will help us to create the object item. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will go for create a new package class. Okay, so I'm going to create a class, and the package I'm going to give it as like edu dot jsp dot spring spring core xml and dot I will just go with the DTO. Okay, so DTO is nothing but like we will be having the all the entity class. Okay, and here I will give the class name. Okay, so now let me go with the class name as right, let me go with the class name as okay. So now let me go with the class name as pencil. Pencil. So let me go with the class name as pencil, guys. Okay, then I will go for just click finish. And inside this pencil class, what I'm going to do is, so let me have one no argument constructor. So I'm going to create a one no argument constructor. Sorry, yeah, so let me create the constructor because like we don't have any arguments. Okay, so no argument constructor with public. Okay, so public non-static. Okay, so the class name followed by these and this. Okay, so I'm going to create a one no argument constructor. Okay, and let me go for add a static block here. Okay, so let me go for add a static block. So so we will get to know. Okay, so when this class will be loaded. Okay, so when this okay, or else like no need to add the static block. Okay, so just go with a one method is enough. So I will tell you like in later classes we will understand that when this and all. So first let us concentrate on out let us concentrate on like how to create an object of that particular class by using this Spring framework. Okay, how the Spring framework will help us. So yeah, so pencil, cool. Okay, so let me create a method as okay, so print. Okay, so this is going to print. Okay, so here I will just add a simple SOP statement, and I'm just going to print as okay. So I am in pencil pencil class uh, pencil class and print method. So print method. I'm in pencil class, print method. Good. So now that's all. Okay, so this is what we need to do, guys. Okay, so that's all. That is the configuration we are performing. One sec, give me a second. Okay, so now what I need to do? Okay, so now I said okay, so I need to create a object for this. Okay, so I will inform. I need to inform my Spring framework. Okay, a Spring framework. I need you need to create an object for this particular pencil. Okay, so like as I'm using the Spring framework. Okay, so I need to use that new keyword. Like okay, so I need to no need to use that new keyword and create an object. So it is going to help us to create an object. Okay, so the internally my Spring framework is going to create an object and then it will give me the object. Okay, so whenever I want, just I need to use a reference variable and I need to get. Okay, but I need to inform, right? I need to inform my Spring framework to create an object of this particular class. To inform that, what we need to do is I need to get a fully qualified name. Okay, so before that, let us go for create an XML file. Okay, so we need to have a XML file as we are dealing with the XML configuration. So first, let me create a XML file. Okay, so what you guys need to do is okay, so under src main Java. Okay, so it must be under src main Java only, guys. Just right click on it and go for new file. Okay, so here I'm need to create a file. Okay, so I selected I'm going to need to create a file. The file is of type like XML. Okay, so what I'm going to do is okay, so we can give any name. Okay, I'm going to give the name as my spring spring dot xml. Okay, so I'm going to give the file name as my spring dot xml. Then click finish. Okay, so then click finish. Oh, I need to add that beans tag and some of the beans I need to add. Okay. Okay. So just give me a second. I'll check whether I have added to the GitHub. Spring Boot starter dependencies I added. Bean.xml. Yeah, cool. It is there. Okay, so guys, once repeat how to add Spring. Okay, guys, to add a XML file in our project. Okay, so what you need to do is just right click on this src main Java. Okay, so you guys need to right click, select this src main Java, right click, go for new and click on the file. If you're not getting, just go for other and here just type it as file. So you will get okay, so general file, select that, click next, give a name. Okay, so you can give the file name anything. It is not mandatory to go with the MySpring. You can give the file name anything. Okay, so I can give the file name like myspt.xml also and click finish. So you can see I got a my sorry, my spring XML. Similarly, I got my spd. Okay, so inside this nothing is there. Okay, so we will add. I will tell you like what are the information has to be added. Clear, guys? I hope everyone created with the XML file. Yeah, yeah. So I'll give you like another 2 minutes. Try to complete all the XML file. Like okay, so create the XML file. Then we will I will tell you like what has to be added to that. Okay, so fine. Now, one sec, I will share the browser part. Okay, so guys, I hope you guys know that like my GitHub link, right? Okay, so just give it, okay, or else like I will share this one. Go through that. Sorry, yeah. One second, sorry. I hope you can see the pages, right? Okay, so go through that this link. I'm going to share this link to you guys. Okay, so in the broadcast, I will be adding that. Okay, I'm going to add that details in this broadcast. Click on that GitHub link. Okay, so it will be redirecting to you my bean.xml file. Okay, just copy these beans. Just copy these beans. Okay, so you guys need to copy this one, right? So just copy that, copy the things which is present like in bean tag, bean, xmlns, so strings, beans, and all. Okay, just copy that. Once you have copied that, come back to your Eclipse. Okay, so come back to your Eclipse. Yeah, so come back to your Eclipse, and here, so we need to add that the XML like beans tag and all. Okay, so here we need to add that. Just delete this one. I don't want that multiple. Okay, so let me go with like different. One more time, we will go for that. Not an issue. Okay, so here I need to add this bean.xml. Okay, so whatever thing we have copied, just add it here. Okay, then save. So add that and go for save. I hope everyone has added. Okay, I hope everyone received the link and you guys are capable of seeing that supporting files bean.xml file. Just copy the bean tag from new package. Cool. Okay, so instead of DTO, I will go with service. Yes, I will go with service. And inside this service package, I'm going to create a class. Okay, I'm going to create a class. The class I will be creating as test A. Okay, so let me go with test A. Create a class as test A. Yeah, sorry guys. Okay, so I hope you guys like just create a class test A. Okay, so there I will tell you like what is the implementation we want to provide. Before that, we need to do one configuration. Okay, so that is like under my spring.xml. Okay, so after like before this closing of the bean tag. Okay, so before this closing of the bean tag, beans tag, just use a tag called bean. Okay, so use a tag something called as bean. Guys, I want everyone to be follow the same. Okay, so just come to my .xml file, whatever the xml file name you are going to give. Come to the .xml file. Okay, so the file must be present under your src main java, guys. I'm repeating. Okay, so the file must be present under src main java only. Okay, yeah, so then inside this add the beans tag. Okay, so copy from the github and add that. Okay, so before closing this beans tag, just add a one more bean tag. Okay, so add one more bean tag. So now in this bean tag, okay, so inside this bean tag, okay, so we need to mention. Okay, so now we need to mention some of the information so that the string v is going to be created particular object. Okay, what are the information I need to mention? The information I need to mention as, okay, so for which class? Okay, so for which class the spring has to create an object. Okay, and then what will be the reference variable? These are the two information I need to mention. So first I will give the class. Okay, so the class is, I need to pass the fully qualified name of a class. So I will come back to my pencil. Okay, so just right click on the pencil class, copy qualified name. Okay, and come back again to my spring dot xml file, just paste. Okay, so the pencil class is present under edu jsp spring core xml dot dto package. Okay, so this pencil class is present under this package, so I'm mentioning the fully qualified name. Okay, then I need to mention the reference variable. Okay, so I need to mention the reference variable. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an attribute something called as id, and for this id I'm going to give. Okay, so I'm going to give the name for this id as. Okay, so here I'm going to give the name as like my pencil, PNCIL pencil object obj. Okay, so I'm going to give the name as obj. So now if I want to inform my spring. Okay, so container. Okay, so create an object. Okay, just we need to pass the fully qualified name of a class. So if I'm going to pass a fully qualified name of a class, then automatically it is going to create an object for that particular class. Okay, so automatically it is going to create an object for that particular class if I'm passing that with respect to the bean tag. And then if I want to make use of that object, then I need to have a reference variable. Okay, so through that reference variable only I can able to make use of it. Okay, so that one. Okay, so that one. Okay, so to give it. Okay, to inform. Okay, so this is the reference variable you need to point for that particular class object. So for that we have an attribute. Or yeah, so we have an attribute something called id. So id is the attribute which helps us to give a reference variable for that particular object, guys. Okay, then come back. Okay, so this is what the configuration we need to do. Okay, so this is all the configuration we need to do. Now come back to this test class. Okay, so let me add a main method for this test class. So just add a main method to the test class. Okay, so then I will just go with a statement. Okay, so SOP statement I'm going to use. Okay, so as okay, so I'm using spring IOC. Okay, so I'm using Spring IOC or Spring, yeah, so Spring IOC. And just I'm displaying just I'm using Spring IOC. Now I need to create an object. Okay, so I need to create an object for that particular pencil. Okay, so no, so now I need to create an object. I need to make use of that object. Okay, so which is present in my container. Okay, so at that time what we can do is we need to follow some steps. Okay, so we need to follow some steps. The steps are, okay, so to get a object. Okay, so to get an object which is present in my container, the Spring will provide me an interface something called as bean factory. Okay, so yeah, so Spring will provide me an interface something called as bean factory. Sorry, so bean factory. So basically this is an interface. Okay, so now I will create a reference variable as bean factory for this. So now I need to have an implementation class which helps us to create an object for this particular class. We can use an. Okay, so for this bean factory, so we can use an implementation class. The implementation class for bean factory is something called as like XML bean factory. There is called as something called as like XML bean factory. We need to use that XML bean factory, and we can create an object up for this bean factory. But the thing is like this XML bean factory class. Okay, so there is a constructor which accepts an resource. Okay, so this constructor is going to accept a resource. Okay, so this constructor is going to accept a resource. Again, this resource type object. Okay, so resource is also an interface. Okay, so if you want I will show you. Yes, so resource is also an interface, we can see. Okay, so resource is also an interface. Now just this XML bean factory. Okay, so this XML bean factory is asking constructor. Okay, so the XML bean factory. So to create an object for bean factory, so we are using a helper method, sorry, helper class like XML bean factory. Basically, this XML bean factory constructor. Okay, so if I want to create a bean factory object, then it is asking something called as resource type object. Okay, so now let us create an object for the resource type. Again, if I see this resource is also an interface. Okay, so we need to use its implementation class. Okay, so what I'm going to use, I'm going to make use of an implementation class, something called as like class path resource. Okay, so here, so I'm going to make use of this class path resource. So here it has an implementation class. Okay, so resource has an implementation class, something called as like class path resource. As the name says, okay, so here just I'm passing the resource object. Yeah, so you can see as the name of this class only says that, okay, so class path resource. Okay, so we are creating a resource of particular class. Okay, so we are creating a resource of the class or a path. Okay, so for which the Spring containers has to be create a object. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is, okay, so instead of null, I'm going to pass my XML. Okay, so this XML file name with the extension also. I'm going to give it as my spring.xml. I'm going to pass this my spring.xml. Okay, so once that is done, okay, so what I'm going to do is on my bean factory. Okay, so on my bean factory, I'm going to invoke a method. Okay, so called get bean. Okay, so I'm going to invoke a method called as get bean, and then I will be passing the reference variable which I have been given for this particular class. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke this. Sorry, I'm going to invoke the get bean. Okay, and I will be passing this reference variable. Okay, so I'm going to pass this reference variable which I have been given in the bean class. Have been given in the bean class. So this is the reference variable. I'll be passing that reference variable in get bean. So this get bean is a method which helps us to give an object from the container. Okay, so it is going to help us to provide an object for that particular class from the container. Okay, so inside my container the objects will be present, so it will just take the object and it will give me that object. Okay, so based on the reference variable. Okay, now I'm going to do, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to yeah, so the return type of this get bean is object. Okay, and we want an object of something like pencil class. Okay, so right, we want an object of pencil class. Yeah, so it is giving error because like we need to go for cast. Okay, so we need to go for casting. Okay, so just I went with the downcasting. Okay, so I'm just performing this downcasting operation. Cool, guys. I hope everyone just created this one, right? See, what I'm going to do is, see, in this class I need to get a object of pencil. Okay, so the what are the required configuration I have done in my so what are the required configurations are required. Okay, that has been done in my spring.xml file. The configuration, what are the configuration I have done? The configuration is nothing, just I have used an bean tag, and they inside this bean tag I have mentioned the class name, right? So once the class name has been given, then I have mentioned the id. Okay, I have used an attribute something called as like id to refer that class object. Okay, so I have given an id and given a name. Okay, so some information I have given in a form of a string that will be used as a reference variable to point on the object of that particular class. Okay, so that is what the configuration I have done. Any doubts in that configuration, guys? I hope that is clear for everyone. Cool. So once that configuration has been done, what I've done, okay, so I create a class called test A, and inside that I add a method. Okay, so main method I have been added. And here, so I said, okay, so if I want to get a object which is present in my container, okay, so which is present in my container, so this spring container, whatever the object is present. Okay, so I have given the information to create an object. Obviously the spring container is going to create an object. Then I need to get that object. To get that object from the container, and we can make use of that as an object and perform some operation. I need I can go for making use of an interface, something called as like bean factory. Okay, so I can make use of an interface, something called as bean factory. And this is an interface for which, okay, so we cannot go for create an object and use that, like use the some non-static methods which are present in that bean fact interface. Okay, so for that we need to make use of an its implementation class. So we need to go for create an object for this implementation class. So I'm going to create an object. Okay, so the object or the implementation class for this bean factory, we have something called as like XML bean factory. Okay, so XML bean factory is an implementation class for the bean factory interface. And this XML bean factory, inside that class they have declared a constructor which accepts a resource type object. Okay, so which accepts a resource type object. Again, if I see, this resource is also an interface. So I need to create an object for that, like its type of object I need to create. Then I can pass that reference variable or an object to my XML bean factory to create an object for that resource type. I am making use of its implementation class, that is like class path resource. I am making use of an implementation class, something called as class path resource, and I am passing the my XML configuration file for that. Okay, so that's what I have done. So I hope you guys are clear with this one, right? Any doubts, guys? No. Okay. So fine. We will see. So then I'm invoking that so I'm invoking a method, something called as like get bean, by passing the reference variable which I have configured in my spring.xml file. Okay, and this will returns me an object of pencil. Okay, so the return type of this method is like object. So I'm just going for downcasting to the pencil class. So then let me try to invoke this pencil dot print method, and I'm going to run this program. Okay, so let me run this. Right click on it, run as a Java application. Run. Yeah, I got a message like I'm using Spring IOC. Okay, and I got a message I'm in pencil class print method. Yes or no, guys? See, did I use a new keyword to create a pencil class object? No, I didn't use. Okay, so the object was already created, or my Spring container helps me to create an object. I hope you got this one. Execute and see. Okay, so execute and see whether you guys can create an object for this or not. Yeah, so what is the error? Okay, so Maitri, you are getting method print undefined. Just check inside the pencil class. Have you declared the print method? And Prem Krishna, you are getting that line 17 print word showing error. Print word showing error means like just see whether you are invoking the print method or not. Which one you are writing? Uh, can you show? Okay, so send me that error. Okay, so that error, like what is the error, or yeah, what is the error you are getting? Yeah. So, one second. See, guys. So this is the pencil class implementation you guys need must have. So what about others? Okay, so three candidates are getting error. What about others? I hope you guys got an output right. Or cool. Okay, so those who received the output. Okay, so now what you guys need to do is simple. Create one more class, something called as like create one more class, something called as like marker. Okay, create a class called as marker. Add method. Okay, so sorry, add the first add the constructor. No argument constructor must be there. I will tell you like why I need to have that no argument constructor. So not a method. Let's give that name marker. Okay, then add a method. A method name here I'm going to give again as a print. Okay, or else like we can go with display. Okay, so display. And here what I'm going to do is good. Okay, so I'm just displaying a message stating that uh, I'm I'm in marker class. Okay, so I'm in marker class display display method. Okay, the same thing. Now you guys just go for perform the configuration. Nothing but just copy the fully qualified name. Okay, so copy the fully qualified name. Come back to the spring my spring.xml. Add one more bean tag. Okay, so add one more bean tag. Use the class. Give the class fully qualified class name. Give the ID. Okay, so I'm going to give the ID as like my marker obj. Okay, and create one more test class. Okay, so save this one. Come to test here. Okay, so sorry, like create one more test class like test B. Okay, add a main method, and here try to create an object for that particular marker class using the reference variable, and then try to invoke that display method and see whether you are getting the output. So those who have error, yeah. So those who don't have error, try to complete this one, and those who have error, just check. Okay, so this is the pencil class, and this is the implementation I have given. Okay, Gaurav, yeah, Prem Krishna and Maitri guys, you did you complete like did you clear that issue? Okay, so guys, just drop whatever the error you are getting. Just drop a screenshot in the group. You can drop the settings in the group, guys. Sorry, error message. You can drop it in the group. Right, I need to have the resource. Let me create a resource equal to new class path resource, and I will be passing the path name. Okay, so right, I need to pass the paths. Sorry, yeah, I need to pass the path name. Okay, so the path name is like my spring dot xml. Okay, so I need to pass the configuration class. So the configuration file name as spring, and then let me go for create bean factory. Okay, so bean factory. So I will just go with like, okay, so let us go with the bean factory only. Yeah, so bean factory equal to new XML bean factory, and it is asking resource. Yeah, so we have created the resource. I'm passing. Then I need to get a object of my marker. Right, I need to get an object of my marker. So what I'm going to do is I've just create a reference variable for it. Then by using this bean factory, I'm going to invoke a method something called as get bean. And then so here I need to pass the value. Yeah, so it is giving me error because like it is going to return me an object. Okay, so I need to downcast it for marker class. Need to downcast it for marker class, and here so it must accept some value. Okay, so what is the value it is accepting? The value you are going to configure inside your XML file. Okay, so Maitri, you have done the mistake. Okay, so I think like you have given the difference reference variable. Okay, so just copy the reference variable or the variable name you have mentioned in the myspring.xml and pass that into the bean. Okay, so in a string format, you need to pass. So then this will returns that particular object making use of this reference variable. Okay, then I'm going to invoke that marker. I'm going to invoke the display method from the marker class by using the helper method. So let me run this. Sorry, let me run this. Yeah, I'm getting the output like okay. So I'm in marker class display method. So guys, so now uh, I hope everyone done with this, right? So guys, I used to inform that you must have a no argument constructor, right? The reason why, what is the reason is, the reason is simple. So like usually whenever the bean the container is going to create an object. Okay, so just we have mentioned here. So here you can just see, okay, in my configuration class we have just mentioned that, okay, so there is a something class like pencil. I'm giving the fully qualified name of a class, and this is the reference variable you need to refer for that particular object. If I have an argument constructor, then what is the argument that my bean will use to pass? We need to understand, right? So like it is not knowing, okay, so what type of argument I need to pass, what is the value I need to pass, what is the value I can pass for that constructor, so that it can get an object of that. Okay, so it will not knowing. So that is the reason. Okay, so to avoid that, so we I am just passing, I was creating a no argument constructor. As you, okay, so yeah, so we will be having a scenario uh, where we need to have this, or okay, sorry, where we will be having the some arguments, and we need to initialize that. Okay, so let us take an example of that particular. Okay, so let us take an example of that particular, and I will show you. Okay, so how to pass values to insert, okay, so values to inject for that particular arguments or a fields which are present in our classes. So okay, now let us learn that one. One sec, just me give. Oh, okay, so which pom.xml file I have to add that time due to poor network I'm not able to see. Hey, under this pom.xml, just we need to add one dependency. That's all raw. So under this pom.xml, we need to add a dependency tag, and this dependency we need to add dependencies, and dependency we need to add. That's all. I've shared that link in the chat. Okay, so you can, in the broadcast, you can copy that, go through that, and get it done. Okay, cool. Come back. So where I was, sorry. Okay, so guys, under my DTO, I'm going to create a class. See, I'm going to create a class. The class name I'm going to give it as. Let us go with student only. Okay, so let us go with student and click finish. Yeah, cool. Now I have a class. Yeah. So done. Okay, so come back, guys. Okay, I'm going to create a class called as student. Let initially will have only one field. Okay, so I'm going to have only one field. That is okay. So what I'm going to do? Okay, let me create a field called as name. So let me create a field. Sorry, let me create a field something called as name for student, and let me add a argument constructor. Okay, so let me add an argument constructor like name. Okay, so I have an argument. So, sorry. I have an argument constructor for student name. Okay, so which accepts the name and initialize this one. Okay, now let me create a method inside this. Okay, so I'm going to create a method. Let it be return type as void, and the method name I'm going to give it as, okay, so display display. And here I'm trying to use an SOP statement and trying to print. So student name equal to, okay, so I'm going to give it as like student name equal to, I'll be using the name. Okay, so I'll use this name to display. Okay, so whatever the name will be initialized to particular my yeah, sorry, for particular this reference variable name, that will be displayed if I invoke this display method. So as usual configuration we need to do, right? So to do the configuration, what we need required, so that we need to require this fully qualified name of a student class. And make sure that, see guys, I'm making use of this constructor. Okay, so I'm making use of constructor to initialize the name attribute. Okay, now, so yeah, so just copy the fully qualified name, come to my spring .xml file. Okay, so here I need to inform my container there is a class something called as student. Okay, so there is a class called as student, and yeah, so there is a class called as student, and you need to create an object for that, and make sure that you are going to use a reference variable something called as like my student student obj. So this is the reference variable you need to point for that student object. Okay, and so it's our responsibility to inform my, okay, so it's our responsibility to inform the spring container that there is a argument constructor. Okay, so there is an argument constructor inside my student class. To inform that, again, so, and just guys make sure that, okay, so you, okay, so after okay, opening this bean tag, so inside this bean tag I'm mentioning the class id, and then the bean tag has been this tag is done. Okay, then I'm going to use here. Okay, so before closing the bean tag, I'm going to write, I'm going to make use of an sorry, a tag something called as constructor arg. Okay, so this helps us to initialize the value inside my constructor. Again, here also we need to mention inside this constructor tag, opening tag only. Okay, so here, what I need to mention. Okay, so what I need to give. So the I need to give. Okay, so what is the value has to be initialized for that particular student. Okay, so I'm going to give the name of the student as Karthik. Okay, so the name like, so this is the name I'm going to initialize for that particular student object when I'm going to create a student object. Okay, so cool. Now let me go for, okay, so just I will give it. Okay, guys, see what I've done here. I'm informing my container to create an object for this particular student class, right? Using a and after that creating an object, I am asking my container to refer that object by this reference variable called as my student obj, and I'm informing my container that inside this student class there is an argument constructor. Okay, so there is an argument constructor which is accepting a value of string. Okay, so for which you can pass a value similar to like this. Okay, so similar to like this, so this is the value you need to pass. I'm just informing, I'm not informing like what is the type. Okay, so that will be like taken care by the my container only. Just I'm yum, so sorry, just I'm passing, yeah, sorry, just I'm passing the, so this is the value you need to pass for that particular constructor. That's all. Okay, so once that is done, let me create one more test class. I'm going to create a test class as C. Okay, and then I will add a main method. So then the things are remain same. Okay, so that is like I need to create a resource equal to new class path resource. Okay, so class path resource, and I am going to pass the file XML file name as like my spring dot xml is the file name I have given. Okay, so see, check with the spelling like my spring dot xml. Then go for creating a bean factory. Bean factory. So bean factory is a reference variable I'll be using. Okay, so to create an object of this particular interface, I'm going to make use of its implementation class, something called as XML bean factory, and I'm passing the resource. Then now let me use this bean factory and invoke a get bean method by passing the reference variable. The reference variable I have given for my student is like my student student obj is the reference variable I have been given. and this we is going to return me a student object. Okay, so I'm going to declare. So student equal to, so this will be returns me a student object. Yeah, so I need to go for downcasting. The reason why I need to go for downcasting, it is a generalized method. Get bean is a generalized method which can return any type of the object. Okay, cool. Now let me try to invoke that display method. Student dot, sorry, display. Now let me run this and see what is the output I'm going to receive. Yeah, I'm waiting. Okay, so student name is equal to Karthik Ranganathan. Cool. So that is the name I have given. Now let me change the name. Change the name. Okay, so now let me change the name and see. Okay, so what is the thing is coming? Okay, so come to my spring.xml. Okay, so I'm just giving the name from one of your batchmates. Get to know in detail. So here just have given an example. I hope you guys got to know like how to initialize an object. Okay, so how to create a like instantiation object. We got to know method in the bean factory get bean for what configuration we need to do. We have done and we have seen the output also. Any doubts, guys? Do you have any doubts here? This in this constructor injection. Yeah, I will show that one also. ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಎಂದು so CSV complex type 2.4 invalid content was found starting with the element HTTP. Guys, try to execute that. So one second. Yeah. Again, you need to go for use the that consider argument many. Okay, I will show you. Cool. Okay, so now let me add few more fields. Okay, like int, sorry, int id for the student. Okay, so similarly I will add double marks. Okay, so I am going to add int id name marks and okay, one sec, let me give a second. Yeah, Yes, let me add. Okay, now I will just remove this one and I will be adding a no parameterized, so a parameterized constructor. I will go for add a all parameterized constructor. Okay, and let me try to print student name. Okay, so similarly, let me try to print the student ID. So now I will go with print the student ID. Okay, so what is the ID I will be passing? That will be displayed here, right? So similarly, let me try to print the marks. Okay, so now let me try to print the marks. Okay, so when I invoke this display method, I'll be getting the output of ID, yeah. So come to the my service. I'm going to invoke one more constructor argument, and I'm going to pass the value. I'm going to pass the value. Okay, so the marks I'm going to pass as like 9. Okay, and then first I will be passing the argument. Okay, and first I'm going to pass the value as ID as like 101. That's all. Okay, so this is how. So ID, name, and marks. Now let me execute this and see what is the output I'm going to receive. See, I'm getting ID, name, marks. What I have done, the changes is simple. I have done the changes simple. Okay, so I have added another fields. Okay, another two fields have been added to my student class. That is like ID, name, marks, and I have created a parameterized constructor which accepts ID, name, marks. Okay, so take a screenshot of this one. So once I added the more fields in my student class, I went back to my spring.xml file and I'm informing my container to create an object of this student class. And I'm also informing that while creating an object, there is a parameterized constructor. Okay, so inside that student class, there is a parameterized constructor. So for which you need to pass the parameters. Okay, so you need to pass the values like, okay, so 101 and the name of the student and marks. Okay, so let me change the marks. Okay, so 89.9. Good. So marks. Okay, so this is the thing I am doing. So this configuration is done. I came back to my test C and just run the program as it is. I didn't perform any changes. I didn't add. Okay, I didn't do nothing. Just run this. So working this display and implementation I have done in the my student display method. So I'm getting okay ID 101 name marks. I'm getting okay. So you can take a screenshot of the student class. Take a screenshot of the student class, guys. Hey, Atul Pawar, like what was your question? Can I get two student details in?
days only. Salary pack is 20,000 per month. Later it will be hiked based on your performance. And bond 3 years bond is there, and you need to submit original certificate to the company. This coming Friday. Qualification BE, BTech, BCA, stream CS, IS, IT, ECE, and Triple E. Year pass out should be 21 and 22, and your 10th, 12th degree aggregate percentage should be 55%.
Object. Okay, so I will show you like how we can perform that the same thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just I will make it, sorry, just I will make a copy of this bin tag and I will be giving paste. Okay, and my student, this is my student object 1 and this is my student object 2, and I will pass the ID 102 name. Okay, so let me pass the name. And I'm going to give the marks. Okay, so 8.90. Let us go. Yeah, so this is how we can create. Okay, so this is how we can create. Okay, come back to just configure one more bean tag to give an object. Okay, and initialize the values. So yeah, this one will give me a student one object, and this will be the first student. Okay, so similarly, I'll make a copy of it and get the second student. So student, sorry, student two, and student object is save this. Let me run and see what is the output I'm going to receive. Yeah, you can see I got two student details like student one with the ID as 101, name Tejaswini, marks 89.90. Student two with the ID like 102, name as like Atul Pawar, and marks is like 78.9. So this is how we can configure multiple objects. Guys, do you have any doubts in this? The configuration of to create an object. Yeah, so here also we are using new keyword. Yeah, so in the upcoming sessions you will get to know. Okay, so we are going to eliminate that new keyword only from our Spring Boot object. Okay, so our sorry, from our Spring framework. Okay, in our Spring framework projects we are not going to use any new keyword. Okay, so I'll show you like, okay, so we are not performing that, like we are just informing my, we need to inform to my Spring container. Okay, so create a particular object, then automatically it will create and gives. So just we need to make use of that object. How many times you want, the times that many objects can be created. Okay, so any doubts guys? Do you have any doubts in this concept? I hope you got an idea like how we can deal with a Spring framework. You can talk. ಎಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. Okay, so guys, then that's all for today. Have a nice day. Okay, so we'll meet in the next session, and like tomorrow we are going to come like continue the topic of this Spring framework, and we will see like there are two more ways are there. So tomorrow we can see that, then we can go with the Spring Boot application. Okay, so we will learn this Spring is a multiple framework, guys. Okay, so it will consist of like internally it will consist of like Spring Boot, all that things are there. So we will see like one by one. We will go through that. Okay. Have a nice day, guys. Take care. Bye.